UN agency located in any developing country, but little is known about the United Nations office in Nairobi, and even less is appreciated about how Kenya had to engage in vigorous lobbying to get the office hosted here. KTN's Timothy Otieno tells us the story of an unknown office to many around the world, but remains largely an enigma to the very citizens whose country the office is located.
It was all pomp and color on the 2nd of October 1973 when the United Nations Environment Agency offices were opened by then-President Jomo Kenyatta at the Kenyatta International Conference Center. But on that day, one man who should have taken all the credit for the country's successful milestone was not recognized. 13 months prior, Ambassador Joseph Odero Joey would kickstart an ambitious bid for Nairobi to host the new office. It should have been a daunting task, considering New York, London, Vienna, and Geneva were all eyeing the chance to host the United Nations Environment Program office. Being the excellent diplomat that he was known for, Joey galvanized African support to have the United Nations give the dark continent a chance to house its key agency. By November 1972, the 43-year-old had secured the signatures of 32 African head of states and produced a draft session paper which was presented before the United Nations General Assembly for approval. A year later, Nairobi opened its arms to the world through the United Nations office. In 1974, the need to have the office located at a much spacious environment, so the Kenyan government donate 146 acres of land in Gigiri, which previously only consisted of coffee. The construction of the multi-million-dollar facility saw 10 office blocks set up with room for future expansion. And in 1985, the United Nations Environment Program officially moved its offices from the KICC to Gigiri.
40 conference room just now? Yeah, 40 conference room, and offices around 23 UN entities.
But the real growth for the office began nearly 25 years ago. Additional office complexes were constructed in this very compound from the 1980s to the 1990s, including the United Nations International Children's Emergency Fund UNICEF, the United Nations Educational, Scientific and Cultural Organization UNESCO, the World Food Programme, as well as the United Nations Development Fund. All part of an ambitious effort to solidify Nairobi as Africa's UN agency hub. The United Nations office in Nairobi was constructed in 1996 and now employs over 3,500 people who come to this facility as employees. An additional 4,000 people visit the office as tourists every year.
I'm very happy that we have a lot of conferences, a lot of global conference being done here in our complex.
The compound recently hosted the first ever UN Habitat Assembly, held from the 27th to the 31st of May this year, and with 7 billion Kenya shillings approved by the UN General Assembly for expansion of the premises, the partnership between Kenya and the United Nations continues to deepen, solidifying Nairobi's position
and also
as a global UN center. Timothy Otieno, KTN News.
Of course, is UNEP.
Now, Mani National Congress leader has opposed a move to revert Kenya Tea Development Agency to a government parastatal. According to Mudavadi, the plan to change the agency to authority was ill-advised and will kill the tea sector in the country. He pointed that when he was agriculture minister, together with other parliamentarians from tea